On the show in Wheelspin, we drive the upgraded Renault Koleos and Renault Fluence. In Wheelspin, we ride the new Hyosung GT250R. And in Wheelspin, we go off the road on 4 wheels, but in an ATV.
Renault has been around in our country since 2011, but they really hadn't been able to make a dent in the Indian market. That is, until the Duster came along. But before that, their premium offerings like the Fluence and the Koleos, well, they just did not find too many takers. And Renault says it's ready to change that and has thus given its first offerings in India, the Koleos and the Fluence, the long-awaited facelift. Now, these cars look very different, especially when viewed from the front, and that's because primarily that's where all the changes have been done. You get a nice chrome garnish on top of the fog lamp, and also if you look at the front grille, well, that is totally changed as well and now proudly sports a big Renault badge. There are a few other changes as well, but it's not very easy to spot them. So let's just highlight them for you. The Koleos now comes with two-tone 17-inch alloy wheels, chrome side protectors, new fabric seats, and the front passenger seat is now electrically adjustable. The Koleos also offers ESP, hill start assist, hill descent control, and the engine, well, that's been tuned to produce a higher output of 173 PS. The Koleos range is now cheaper because of the new variants, and prices start from 22.24 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi for the 4x2 manual variant. The Koleos is powered by a 2-litre diesel engine and nothing's changed in that particular department, but what they've done is that they've increased the power output of the diesel engine to 173 PS. Now, there are 3 variants in the Koleos now, as opposed to earlier there was only one, and this is the top of the line 4x4 automatic, which develops about 173 PS of power and about 360 Nm of torque. Now the base version, which is the 4x2 manual transmission, now that is slightly underpowered. The engine in the Koleos remains the same as before, but it's now available in 2 states of tune spread across 3 variants. We get a base model which is a 4x2 manual which produces about 150 PS of power, and a 4x4 manual and a 4x4 automatic which produce 173 PS of power. But once you get it going, that's when it hits the sweet spot. You see, to get this motor moving, you have to keep the engine at about 2250 RPM. And after that, it's pretty strong all the way up to its red line of about 4000 RPM. What you'll also appreciate is that the steering wheel, which was butter smooth at slow speeds and city traffic type conditions, the minute you start going faster, like on the highways and all, it stiffens up, and the feedback from the front wheels is just phenomenal. But the thing is that the Koleos has been set up for ride comfort, so if you try and push it too hard, it gets a bit wallowy. But the flip side is that it absorbs the bumps quite nicely. The ride comfort is not compromised by the potholes and all the undulations that are there on the open road, and the Koleos provides a very good amount of ride comfort. Now, if you're into spirited kind of driving and want to get somewhere in a hurry, you just have to slide it into the manual mode, and then you can change the gears through this sequential gearbox over here on the gear shift itself. But the only problem is now very responsive, and that's because of its gearbox. You tap on the gear shift, you want the car to go forward, well, that can only happen once the gears change, but that itself takes so much time that the movement is just lost. The Fluence looks much sharper now rather than the bare teeth earlier one, and that's largely due to the new grille. It again sports the huge Renault logo dead in the center. On either side, you now get projector lamps. If you look at the fog lamps area, you get a nice chrome surround, and to add to the style quotient, LED daytime running lights. There are also a few other changes in the Fluence that are not immediately noticeable. It now comes with a new design for the alloy wheels, a new 3D surround sound stereo system with USB, front and rear parking aids, and also the interiors have gone a change in terms of the upholstery color scheme, and they now come with more chrome to enhance that premium feel. Now the cabin of the Fluence is a very nice place to be, and we've already seen that. But how does she behave out on the road? Well, the engine is the same. It's the 1461cc diesel engine, 4 cylinders, and it develops about 110 PS of power and 240 Newton meters of torque at about 1850 RPM. Now the mid-range of the car is where all the power comes in, honestly, but a little low down, anything less than 2000 RPM, it's kind of disappointing. You actually have to get the engine to be on the boil. If you really have to overtake, get it above 2000 RPM, and that's when the car responds best. So the power unit may be a little disappointing down in the rev range, but let's talk about the gear shift. Now that is something that is really good. The gear throws are short, it falls precisely into place and doesn't require any effort at all. But the thing that really brings out the sporty nature of the Fluence is the steering wheel. It's electronically assisted, but it gives a very nice feedback. And it's properly weighted too, so you actually know what the front wheels are up to. So when you want to push the car a bit, you won't be disappointed. As the speed goes up, it gets more and more stiffer, gives you more control, and doesn't feel like an electronically assisted unit after all. Now that really brings out the joy and the fun of driving the Fluence. Now while the gear shift itself may be very nice and very easy to operate, but it's the thing that goes along with the gear shift that's a bit of a pain. Yes, I'm talking about the clutch. When you're driving in slow city type traffic conditions and you need to use the clutch to go up and down the gearbox, it's a bit of a pain because it's a little bit hard. Both these cars are great, but it's the positioning of the brand in this already shrinking segment. You see, that is something that people look at, and that is just where the problem might be. Now, Renault needs to make a strong stand in this segment if it wants to come across as a brand that people would love to wear and even show off.
If you are a young and an enthusiastic rider, at one point or the other, you must have desired a sports bike. But the problem was there haven't been too many around, which were either affordable or at an entry level. But not anymore. Hyosung has launched the GT250R, which is a complete sports bike, and it's affordable too. What I have with me today is what the company calls the new Hyosung GT250R. Well, it's not really a new bike as you'd expect, but it's a bike where a little bit of value addition has been done in terms of the body, graphics, and also new color schemes. There are now 3 new color schemes you can get the bike in, and also the headlamp has changed. As it is, the GT250R is not a bad looking bike at all. It's a proper sports bike with a nice bulging tank, clip-on handles, and an upswept exhaust. Overall, these additions will only make the GT250R a little more attractive. The Hyosung GT250R is a sports bike targeted at the young and all those who like to see the speedo go into triple digits in a matter of few seconds. In India, there are a host of bikes available ranging from the big engine cruisers to super bikes, and in between there are entry-level bikes in almost all segments. The Hyosung GT250R is one such sports bike in this segment. The instrumentation cluster here is a combination of analog and digital, and I quite like it because it's large dial and easy to read. Even the digital font is quite big, which makes it very convenient while you are riding. But what I would have liked to see in here is a gear shift indicator. The Hyosung GT250R looks quite good with a full fairing and a low seating position. But being just a 250cc machine is a far cry from the thoroughbred sports bikes available in India now. But the good part is that it still offers an enthusiastic ride and is a good bike to learn the ropes on before graduating to a much faster superbike. The Hyosung GT250R here is powered by a parallel twin 249cc motor which produces about 28 brake horsepower. It's not the kind of a power which will make you drool, but actually if you look at the 250cc category, this kind of power is just about average. It's not bad. But what is very important here is not the amount of power or the torque that it produces, but how she goes about doing that. And now it's my turn to go ride this one and tell you exactly how she rides. In terms of ergonomics, the GT250R is quite spot on and you can really lean the bike through the corners. The seating is comfortable and all controls are within easy reach. But what I don't really like about the engine is that it's a bit unrefined, especially at the lower revs, and it sounds a bit harsh. But in terms of power delivery, it's quite linear and it easily revs up to the red line of over 10,500 RPM. The top end is strong, with the bike getting close to the 150 km mark quite easily. This is actually quite an enthusiastic machine. Turn on the throttle and you can see the revs building up immediately. All I can say is that you will not be disappointed when you open the throttle. In terms of handling, it stays quite planted even at high speeds, and even though the bike weighs in at 188 kgs, you don't really feel the weight, and it's easy to chuck it around the corners. The tyres on the rear provide adequate grip, and what I really like is the very reassuring feel of the brakes. In fact, the rear too has a disc, which is not always the case in a bike in this category. So what do I have to say about this GT250R after riding it? Firstly, keep in mind that if you desire a sports bike, this is the only one available as an entry-level sports bike in the Indian market. And in terms of design, she looks quite nice. In fact, she's designed like a proper sports bike, so you won't be disappointed with the looks at all. Secondly, in terms of performance, she is quite good for a 250cc motorbike. It has enough top end, about 150 plus kilometers. The low end is quite nice and torquey. She looks the part. She is a proper sports bike in every sense of the term, and you can really have nice, good ergonomics while driving it. Thirdly, she is quite affordable at 2.76 lakhs at showroom Delhi. It's not a bad pricing for a bike style like this. So what is it that doesn't really find favor with me? To begin with, the engine. I would have preferred a bit more refinement in the engine, especially at the low end of the rev band. When you start the bike, it does sound a bit rough and raspy, but of course it gets a whole lot better once the revs build up and you start cruising. Secondly, some of you might have a problem with this brand name Hyosung, because after all, Hyosung is not a very big name in motorcycling. But let me tell you, in terms of build quality, in terms of performance, this bike doesn't lack anything. And if she had sported a much fancier brand name, the price could have been much higher. So you are getting a proper bike with this Hyosung brand, which is really nice to ride and very good to look at. The best part about the Hyosung GT250R is that it is priced at Rs 2.76 lakhs, which by sports bike standard is quite an attractive price tag. And this is what we feel will make it attractive for all those who want to be astride a cool superbike and make their statement. As we said, in terms of riding too, it does come up with an acceptable performance. So if you are looking for an entry-level sports bike, the Hyosung GT250R can be a viable alternative.
Living in the city does have its advantages, but after a while, you need to get away from it all. Head towards Mother Nature and explore the great wild outdoors. Now you can either choose to do it on foot, but if you're a petrol head like me, then probably you need something more. Something like this. ATVs, which stands for all-terrain vehicles, have been roaming our planet since the 1970s. Now, they were first used by the army, and after that they slowly found their way into the utilitarian sector where they were used by farmers. And then somebody realized that there's a potential for them. They are able to go places where no man has gone before, and somebody decided to use them as adventure sports vehicles also, and people now use them to go places boldly where no one has ever explored before. Now, I have to be honest here. I've always wanted to ride one of these, but this is actually the first time that I've been able to get my hands on one. Now, this particular ATV that we have is based on the traditional style of ATVs, which means that it has a handle like a normal motorcycle and four wheels like a normal four-wheel drive vehicle. This is the Polaris Sportsman 550 EPS. This particular model also has an electronic power steering, which makes it easier to go anywhere. The engine is a 550cc, it's fuel injected, and this particular one, as you can see, has seating for 2 up, which means it's great for exploring places with your friends. Now let's get you familiar with the controls of this ATV and tell you how it is to actually drive this thing. Well, the throttle is not in your hand grip over here, but it is operated by your thumb. And that is because when you're going up an incline, you don't want to be pulling back and have the ATV running out of control from your hand. What you also get on your thumb over here is the control for the 2x4, the 4x4, and it even has a feature which allows it to engage the active hill descent control. Now if we talk about the gearbox is in your hand over here. You have a high mode, you have a low mode, which is used for going uphill on steep inclines, a neutral, a reverse and a park. An automatic gearbox, just put it into the high mode and you're off exploring. Now if you talk about the brakes, there is a hand brake over here and a foot brake over here. Now before we actually take this thing for a ride, it is very important to gear up with all the safety equipment that is required. I mean, you are exposed to the elements. This is an extreme kind of a sport, so safety is of paramount importance. Well, now that we're all geared up, let's start the Polaris up and explore the unknown. I did take a little bit of time to get familiar with the Sportsman 550 and decided to take it easy at first. I know what these ATVs are capable of, but I just needed to know what I was capable of extracting from it. So, some slow exploring runs to begin with was a good place to start. The Sportsman takes the rough and makes it smooth. Its suspension is ever so forgiving, and the thick, generously padded seat ensures that the ride is extremely comfortable. The electronic power steering does make maneuvering the Sportsman 550 very easy, and it even features a variable assist for easier steering at lower speeds and increased responsiveness at high speeds. Time then to tackle some small inclines and descents to get the confidence levels up. It does seem very eager to climb up and come down, and as much as I hate to admit it, that's probably not because of my skill, but due to the on-demand all-wheel drive system, the active descent control, and the engine braking system that makes it seem like a piece of cake. Okay then, let's get a little more adventurous and see how she handles at speed. But the harder I push it, the better it seems to perform. Having had my confidence levels up and the adrenaline pumping, I decided to try my hands at tackling this. Now, maybe the camera angles don't do justice to this terrain, but it is a steep drop, especially for a novice like me. Still, not sure though, but here we go. That was easy. Having done it once, I wanted to do it again and again and again. But wait, I almost forgot. I have something waiting for me. Something that's bigger and even more powerful. Something that goes by the name of the RZR S800. But we're saving that for later. See you on the show next week.